Riversea are a UK-based project conceived by Marc Atkinson and Brendan Eyre. Their debut album, Out of an Ancient World, has just been released, and I've got Mark on the line to talk about it. Welcome, Mark.
Hello, how are you doing, Dwayne?
Yeah, good. Thanks for chatting with me. Can you tell me a little bit about your musical background and who some of your influences are?
Well, my personal musical background started when I was around 14 years old, and I started singing with some school friends who were Brian Josh and Liam Davison, that some listeners may recognise as two guys from Most of the Autumn. We formed our first band together when we were 14, really. So we started gigging around that time, and we carried playing on right through, really, in various bands and stuff. And I've always been in bands since that time, and always been writing songs and recording songs. And Riversea came around out of that. Because I play a lot of solo gigs for a living. And I met a guy called Brendan Eyre at one of my gigs in Hartlepool, and he sent me some instrumental tracks that he'd written, some keyboard-based instrumental tracks, and I really liked them, and I offered to try and write some melodies and lyrics for his stuff, and that's how Riversea came around, really, and that's how the whole project began. Also sang with Nine Stones Close and Mandela Band, and I've provided backing vocals for a couple of Mostly Autumn albums, and done a couple of gigs with them as well for live work and backing vocals and things. So yeah, that's pretty much my background.
So who would some of your musical influences be, would you say?
Well, when I was younger, I was very much into the sort of AOR rock. Actually, my first rock band that I got into when I was an impressionable teenager was Iron Maiden. That was a big around the Number of the Beast time. That was my first big album, I would say. And then as my music taste softened slightly, I got more into the AOR sort of stuff like Rainbow at the time, and Survivor, and Bon Jovi, and all that sort of thing. And then as I've got older, my tastes have obviously like a lot of prog nowadays, and Marillion are a big influence on both myself and Brendan, and people like Neil Morse and Foxbeard and Porcupine Tree and things like that. But I like anything really. I've got quite eclectic taste musically. I like anything that I perceive to be good. I like obviously a good singer. With being a singer myself, I like to hear a good voice. So I really enjoy a lot of Seals songs. Train are a big band for me really. Delamitri as well, singer-songwriter things like Damien Rice and David Gray, and really across the board really. I buy all sorts of stuff.
The album took quite a long time to produce, about 5 years. Can you tell us a bit about that journey? I've enjoyed looking at your YouTube clips with the CDs arriving and things like that, but it sounded like it was a long time coming.
Yeah, it was. We first wrote our first song together, me and Brendan, in 2006, late 2006, which actually is the album title track, Out of an Ancient World. It was the very first song, or the very first instrumental that Brendan sent to me as an idea of what can you do to this. So I wrote the lyric and the melody for that over top of his music, and that became that was the first example of what we could do together, and we were both really pleased with how it turned out, and that's really the catalyst for the album. That's what started the whole process off. So then over the next couple of years, because both my Brendan and myself lived apart from each other. At the time, I lived in York and he lived in Hartlepool, and we were an hour apart. So what he'd do at that time is he'd send me instrumental ideas on the CD, and I'd take them to my studio, and I'd see if I could write some songs to those instrumentals, basically. So we collected a lot of songs over a lot of time, and it was a very slow process as well, really, because Brendan worked full time. He had very limited time that he could spend on the music. Obviously, I was gigging as well a lot, and I didn't have much studio time, maybe one day a week at the most. So it was just a question of collecting loads of songs together, and I think we wrote probably about, without exaggerating, probably about 30 songs, I would say, in that time, from 2006 to 2011. We wrote about 30 songs, and we whittled it down to the final 12 that actually appear on the album. So everything was done in bits and pieces, really. Obviously, Brendan recorded his keyboards first, and then I'd record my vocals, and then we'd record guitars, and then the drums went on, and then bass was actually the last thing to go on. I think that if you listen to the album, I don't think it sounds like that. I think it sounds like we're all in the same room playing it together, and that was the beauty of the way that we did it, really. But it all came together very slowly in pieces, and it's just taken a long time to put all them pieces together, and for all of us to be, especially me and Brendan, and a guy called Dave that helped us mix the album, getting all our dates to coincide so we could all be in the same room together to help mix it was, a really a big ask, really. That was the thing that took the time, really, was booking those days in, and we'd have to do it months in advance. So that's the day we're going to go in, we're going to do that, and so that's why it was so slow as well, really. A combination of many things. If we had the studio, if I had the studio at home, for for example, this album would have been finished years ago, but because I didn't have the facilities to do that, unfortunately, it's taken so long. But, the end result, it doesn't matter really. The proof of the pudding's in listening to it, and hopefully it doesn't sound like it was done in pieces, and it's irrelevant how long it took, I think, to the listener, really. It is what it is.
It seems to be a very spiritually based album. There's lots of biblical references there. Are you religious people yourselves? Is that where the ideas come from?
No, I'm not religious at all, actually. I consider myself spiritual, which is probably a strange thing to say after not saying that I'm not religious. But no, I have a lot of questions in life, and I always have. And I've studied a lot of different religions, and I've looked into a lot of different theologies and things like that. And that obviously influences my rights. I'm a big questioner, and I see a lot of problems and atrocities caused by religion throughout the world. And I think it's obviously a very dangerous subject to talk about, but it's a subject that affects the world. I think you don't have to look at the Middle East and everything that's going on. Really, it's a weighty subject, and so it's something that I always tackle because that's part of who I am. And it's my own journey as a spiritual being as well. We're looking for answers, and I think that's really fed into the lyric without a doubt.
Now, I want to ask you about one particular track. Is that what God wants? Where do the ideas in that come from?
Yeah, well, that what God wants is the lyric came from the first verse came from I literally saw in the headline of a newspaper about a Jehovah's Witness lady that had just given birth to twins because of complications during it all she needed a blood transfusion because of her religious faith where they're not allowed to have fake blood. She refused it, so she died, and she obviously left twins motherless. And on the album, the intro to that song, you can hear people talking. It's like a news broadcast thing. That is actually about that very case. And a Jehovah's Witness spokesman went on the news to sort of defend that action. And that footage we used in the intro. And the second verse is actually about 9/11. It's which I literally saw the headline for that in a newspaper and didn't know anything about what had gone on until the next day. And then I went into a place called Windermere, which is over here in the Lake District. And me and my friend who I was camping with, and we saw the headline in, I think it was the Sun newspaper, that just said Armageddon, and it was a massive mushroom cloud above New York City. That was the first thing I saw of 9/11. So that second verse is from that moment, really.
The album, it sort of raises a lot of questions, and I'm glad you said that because that's what I picked up from it. There was a lot of questions, but I wasn't quite sure where you personally were coming from.
Yeah, I'm still a seeker, really. I mean, I'm somewhere in between, really. I'm still a searcher, and I'm still someone that questions everything, really. And I have my own deep thoughts on Jehovah or Yahweh or whatever he's called.
But I wanted to make that point that I just wasn't quite. I was thinking, is he for it or is he against it or what? No. You're very ambivalent about it, which was possibly a good thing. I don't know because you can interpret it either way.
That's exactly what I wanted, really. I wanted the lyrics on the Riversea album to be ambiguous, really, in that sense. I didn't want it to sound preachy in any way or that I knew the answers, as it were. Do you know what I mean? I didn't want to do any of that. It's all about questions, really, for me.
So what's the concept behind the artwork on the album as being a slightly progressive album? Prog fans are always interested in artwork. So what's the concept behind this one?
Well, it was Ed Unitsky that did the artwork. I think I sent him a demo of Out of an Ancient World. I think it was the title track, and because we'd been in touch because I knew him through Nine Stones Close because he did the artwork for Nine Stones Close. Yeah, I got in touch. I think he got in touch with us actually and said, "Do you want me to do your artwork?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I love your stuff, so yeah, that'd be really good." And he sent me what is the artwork for the cover, the image of the man with the light coming out of his chest. He sent me that in the original red that it's in. It's meant to be the sun behind him, I think. So that was a really, it was a lovely image, but in this deep red. And I wrote back to him and said, I love that artwork, but the only thing is we wanted the colours of Riversea to be blue, black and white. And literally within 5 minutes of me sending him that message, he sent me back what became the final artwork for the album cover with the logo on there and everything. He just did it really fast and changed it to blue, and it was just perfect. As soon as I saw it, I thought, well, that's the album. That is what it is for me. So yes, it sort of summed up a lot of the lyrics, and it reflected the themes in the song. So we went with that, really. And Ed did a great job with the artwork and made it beautiful, which is what we wanted it to look like, because we felt that a lot of the music that we were creating had a ethereal, almost beautiful texture to it. So we wanted to make sure the artwork followed suit, really, and it certainly did.
Now, Mark, you're a man after my own heart. You're a music lover and you're a Doctor Who fanatic. What's the connection between the two?
Is it a connection? I don't know. Well, I've just been a Doctor Who fan all my life, really. You know what it's like, really. My earliest memory is of 1972 and the Sea Devils rising from the sea in a John Pertwee story. And that's my earliest memory I have of sitting there in my old, in our own family home in New Erswick in York, watching that episode with the Master and the Sea Devils. And you know, I remember my dad buying me the 10th anniversary Radio Times special edition. So, and that was in 1973. So I must have been a fan for a long, long time. And, you know, and it's just one of them shows that captured my imagination as a kid, and it never ever waned. I watched it religiously every week, and all the way through to the bitter end and Cat of the Days until it came back, really, from when it was cancelled in '89. And then, you know, it was at such an awful time that waiting for it to come back and being promised it was coming back. And it finally came back with the McGann movie in '96, and I loved that. I loved Paul McGann as the Doctor, but then that didn't bring a series either, so it was another long wait till it came back in 2005. So yeah, I've just loved it all the time, really, and still do. I think it's an amazing show, a really mind-expanding show, and yeah, I'm not sure how much it fuels the music, but it certainly has an influence on my psyche.
Could it be that the concept behind Doctor Who being a story that can take you any place, any time, anywhere, be similar to music in that that's music is a never-ending discovery as well?
Definitely. You know, I'm a very obviously a very creative person. I always have been. As a kid, I always used to draw, and I still do draw now. And I've always written songs as well. When we first started our bands when I was 14, we didn't try and play other people's songs, although we did a few covers here and there. We immediately wanted to write songs, you know, and create. And I've always been a lyricist, and I've always been a melody creator, and you know, and I write music as well. So I've always been creative, and I think a lot of that is you know influenced by this idea of escapism that Doctor Who creates. I know it sounds daft, but it is true. It's mind expanding, literally. I've been writing a book actually that you might enjoy actually, Dwayne, right up your street. That's I've been writing it for the last, well, pretty much hand in hand with the Riversea album. It's called Eternal, and it features the Doctor story, but it's the Doctor going back in time and trying to discover you know the mystery of life and the mystery of creation and the truth about God and everything. And so it's quite a deep book, as you can imagine. And I've been writing it for nearly 6 years now, and I'm up to chapter 34, and there's 36 in total. I know how it all ends and everything, and so yeah, so that's definitely influenced that side as well, definitely.
From what I know about you, you seem to be really devoted to your family. How do you balance life as a musician and being on the road for a lot of the time with family life?
Well, it is a balancing act, really, but it's something that I've always done. I've been a full-time musician since 1989, and even before that, I was gigging a lot anyway. So when I got in a relationship with Pam, she knew what my life was and knew that I gig for a living. I knew that, you know, 3 or 4 nights a week I go out and play, and that is my only income. And so she's always been totally supportive of that, really. She understands that that's my job, basically. And she also, you know, loves the fact that I am a musician and loves my creative side, and is just encouraging and supporting all the way through. So, you know, sometimes Enya and Tam, my partner, Enya, my daughter, they come with me to my gigs sometimes whenever they can. They did this last weekend, and Enya got up and sang actually, and earned herself 50 quid, couldn't believe it, for 2 songs, which she was chuffed about. So we've always been a musical family. There's a lot of music, obviously, in our household, and I think it's all that we've ever known, really. It's all Enya's ever known, is that their dad sings, and sometimes has to go away for days at a time to work. But she understands that it's just part of our you know existence, and obviously a lot of driving as well involved, because now we live out over here in the Lake District, which is over 100 miles away from York, where I'm originally from, and a lot of my work is still around York. My live work, even though I'm getting gigs out over here as well. So there's a lot of driving involved, but as I say, it's just something that we've all grown accustomed to. It is the norm for us, really. That is, we don't know any different, really. That's what it is, and we managed to do it, and we managed to be happy, really. And I love my family, and it's, you know, it's nice to be able to support them through music, really, and get paid to sing, which is a dream job, really.
You mentioned earlier that you're going to wait to see what the reception to the album is going to be before you tour it. Do you have a tour band ready to go if that's the
Well, we
case?
certainly have our ideal tour band. I mean, Alex, who plays drums on the album, and Dave, who plays bass, they'd be obviously the first choice for the rhythm section. There's no doubt about that. They play on the full album, and they are giggy musicians that if they're free and if they financially we can make sure that they're going to be paid enough to warrant it, they'll be well up for it. They'd love to do that, and I'd love them to be there. In fact, if I was a millionaire, them two would still be the musicians that I'd want to take on tour. If money were an option, I wouldn't be going for the fanciest names and the flashy drummers and the flashy bass players. I'd go for Alex and Dave because they're superb at what they do. And not only that, but the two of my best friends as well. So that's a win-win, really. Guitar-wise, a guy called Mark Rowan, who plays on the album, he plays on the song and Freeze Graham, and he's done a great job on that. And he lives in New York or Harrogate, near York, and he's offered to play guitar for us if we go out and tour it. So already, yes, there's a band ready to go. It's just a question of if we get the opportunity to do so, because we'd certainly love to do that. But obviously, it costs a lot of money to put something like that on the road and to rehearse and to coordinate everyone's diaries so everyone can do it. It's a big undertaking, and it's something that'd have to be planned months in advance. But it's something that we'd be more than willing to do if it meant to go out and play the songs live for an audience that wants to hear it.
Yeah, I hope you get the chance to do it. I think it'd sound fantastic live. I wish you all the best for Riversea. I think Out of an Ancient World is going to definitely be one to watch for 2012. So thanks for chatting with me tonight, Mark.
Thank you, Dwayne. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.